as many of you know, I have plenty of experience in dramatics and public speaking and whatnot. I've given speeches, I've given eulogies, I've done all sorts of things. But I have to confess to being a little tiny bit intimidated. Not so much, I'm not, you guys, I know you're a supportive audience, yeah. That I really, and I never had a chance to say it to either gentleman, but I was incredibly impressed with the presentations we had this previous semester of both Jeff and Co. And it was really, really good. And I thought, wow, I hope I can live up to that, because I was terribly influenced by that. But I think I've got some stuff that is of interest. And what I'll preface it by saying is, my name is David Ward. I am a 57-year-old white male, and I have nothing to worry about. And I will revisit that statement a little later on with what I'm talking about. I was born and raised, went to high school, and went to college in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Deal with it. Which makes me the most authentic Packer fan here. Green Bay, Wisconsin, not so much anymore when I get occasion to go back and visit, but Green Bay, Wisconsin. I was born in 1959 and grew up there. Elementary school in the 60s, high school in the 70s. Green Bay is as white a place as anywhere probably in the nation. I don't recall seeing a person of color face to face in the same room with me until probably my sophomore year of high school. Which is where we had, went to Preble High School in Green Bay. My graduating class, that's just the senior class, and there was a little different system then. It wasn't 4 years, it was 3 years, so you started high school as a sophomore. You stayed in junior high through 9th grade. So my graduating class of 3 classes was 435 kids. So I think we had a total class size of 1,200 kids. I graduated in 1977, and there was, during my time there, 1 student of color who was an exchange student or transferred up from either Milwaukee or Chicago. I didn't interact with him much. I was the artsy nerd kids, which I haven't deviated far from that, and he kind of hung more with a different crowd. Seemed like a nice guy, didn't have a lot of interaction with him. It's an interesting thing about Green Bay in that time period. I mean, you had the 60s and you know, the civil rights movement going on and all that stuff, and as a young child I was blissfully unaware of any of that. Just a lot of stuff just went over my head. But it was interesting that if you saw a person of color in Green Bay, say from 1962 to 1968, chances are he played for the Packers. Vince Lombardi was very vocal about integrating professional football and all the players of color they had on the team. So odds are, if you saw a person of color during that time walking down the street in Green Bay, he was probably a person to be revered, because of course that was during their championship era and everything like that. You didn't see in the news or anything else any blatant, any kind of covert or overt racism until the university opened an extension campus up there, which is the campus that I went to and met my wife there. Then some things started to happen where things were painted on walls of bars and things like that, because the population started to increase and it wasn't a necessarily revered population. So, graduated in 1977, I went to the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. I met my wife Faye there, some of you know her. She was studying visual arts, I was studying theater. So we were together, we weren't married, but we were kind of deciding, you know, what our future was, where we wanted to go, and what we wanted to do. And so a good friend of mine, I also wanted to pursue theater, and I wanted to pursue it in a bigger city. Green Bay didn't have a whole lot back then. And so a very good friend of mine, one of my oldest and still one of my oldest and dearest friends, who had studied tech theater, had gone down through some connections and had gotten work in Chicago. So he was down in Chicago. And so we thought, well, you know, Chicago might be a good place to start. And so he came up, he'd been down there a year and a half, 2 years or so. I had graduated, my wife Faye still had 2 years to go, so we were I was taking some odd jobs around town, and waiting for her to finish school so we could move, saving up some money. And my friend, his name was Mitch, came back up for the holidays. And so we sat down, had a couple beers, and he's got like a map of Chicago. We're making him our point man. And we're saying, well, where's a good place to live? Where'd be a good place to find an apartment? Where'd be a good place to look around? And he lived, at the time, for many years, I've told people this, he lived in Wrigleyville. He lived literally right across the street from Wrigley Field, so we got to see a lot of Cubs games from his rooftop in the middle 80s. But we're talking, and he said this very casually. I didn't even think he realized how he was saying or what he was saying. It didn't even matter. He said, well, this neighborhood over here is pretty good, but you probably don't want to go over, and I forget the name of the neighborhood, so you probably don't want to go over here for much. That's mostly a black neighborhood. And we had never, you know, I have to say we're pretty naive about race. I mean, because, you know, we're white people, we're young, and I've always skewed all my life. I've always skewed liberal. I've always skewed progressive. I like to think of myself as an independent, but I've mostly voted, you know, Democratic and voted liberal. And one of the things about that, if you're a white person too, is you begin to think that the racial issues that are happening don't affect you because you're in sympathy for them, you're in empathy for them, you understand what's going on. I think there's a difference between understanding it intellectually and truly understanding it. I think it's taken me decades to come closer to truly understanding what is going on in terms of people that I know, in terms of people of color. So anyway, he says this statement. He says, well, you got to be careful over there. That's mostly a black neighborhood. And we were amazed. We were incensed. We were astonished. When did you start thinking like this? Our jaws hit the ground. Our eyes bug out of our heads. We read him the riot act for 20 minutes. Mitch, how could you think this way? What? Oh my God! When did you become racist? Well, we moved to Chicago, and our eyes got opened up quite a bit. For those of you who have lived in Chicago, and Keith and I had, is Keith here? Keith here? Keith, of course, is from Chicago, and anyone else who's lived in Chicago, I kind of chatted with him a little bit about my memories of Chicago, and if you've been there or spending time there, it is really a big city. I mean, it puts Minneapolis to shame. A lot of people, not to shame, but I mean, in terms of size and in terms of energy, you know, it's a much bigger, and the racial makeup is much more, it's older in its history. So everything's much more out front, everything's much more direct, the people are more direct, sometimes a little confrontational about it. So we kind of started getting it. I remember one person telling me Chicago's New York with smaller bats. So we lived there, and we lived there for 9 years, and I loved it. I personally have to say, I'm kind of a city mouse, and my wife is a country mouse. She prefers wide open spaces and fewer neighbors around her. She prefers more space. And I just ate at the city. I love the energy, I love the vitality. I ended up, seeing as I was trying to get work as an actor, I did mostly like restaurant, banquet, and catering work for many, many, many years because it was a much more flexible schedule if you got into a show or got into a play or something. And so I got a job downtown, right downtown, at the Art Institute of Chicago, which is a pretty, you know, major locus and major focal point. I worked in a fine dining restaurant there during the day, and then we would do a lot of banquets and catering at night. And so I had occasion to go home on the light rail, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 nights a week at like 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, which could signal being, you know, a very rough time to try and make your way home. But here's the thing, you know, I never got hassled. I never had one in 7 years since I had started that job in the 9 years I lived there. I never got hassled. I never got, you know, put upon in any way. And at the time I just thought, you know, maybe it's just me. You know, people who know me, I'm kind of a big soft pussycat, but I'm tall and I'm big and I can put on a badass face. So I just always said you kind of had this attitude when you're going home. Don't mess with me, you know. I mean, you're alert. You're obviously not drunk, so you provide yourself to be kind of less of a target for anything going on. But as I come to realize, putting this together, that at really no time in my life have I ever really had to worry about being hassled about anything, really. And I think some of that had to do with race. I'll give you a couple of interesting stories from that time that I think you'll like. I worked with a very diverse coalition of guys. When I worked in the restaurant, it was like 10 of us. And we were mostly young guys, mid-20s, early 30s. A lot of us married, but not, some of us had kids, some of us didn't. I worked with, there were African-American gentlemen, there were Hispanic gentlemen, and there were Middle Eastern gentlemen and white gentlemen. So, very mixed bag of guys. And so, there was one guy in particular. Well, what we would do is you'd prep in the morning, get the dining room ready, get everything set up and all that, had to do some kitchen work. And then you had to sit down, and there were these porcelain menu things that we had that you had to sit and write all the day's specials on. And then when we brought people to the table, you would put the porcelain thing down and then back away, and it was all very shishi and everything like that. And got to meet a lot of famous people, and I served tea to Henry Kissinger and all that crap and stuff. But we had one guy who was from Pakistan. His name was Abdul. And after a while, we'd be sitting, we would talk politics, we would talk, things that we heard in the news and stuff like that. And every day, he would rail against something that the government had done. He would rail about, and I believe at the time, what would that be? I think Reagan was in office. And then he did this, and he did that, and the Americans are so stupid, and they're this and that, and they're doing the wrong thing. We got fed up with this, And there's nothing, you talk about uniting the races, there's nothing that unites a group of men quite so much as a common enemy. And so myself and the black gentleman were like, knock it off, shut up. Finally, I think we actually said at one point, we said, if you don't like America, then leave. The standard old joke, or the standard old cliche. And he said something very interesting that it always stuck with me and opened my mind up. He said, you don't get it. I come from a place where if I'm talking the way I'm talking, I'm maybe not there the next day, or my family is threatened, or I'm put in jail, or maybe I just go away. So he was exercising this newfound freedom that he had. He was just happened to be exercising it on us. But we respected him a little better after that. He still was a pain in the butt, but we respected him a little bit more. And it made me realize, I want to keep this to race, but it made me realize, there's a lot of things in this country we tend to take for granted because we've never had to lose them or never had to be without them. And so that was a very, very good lesson. Another thing that happened, I worked with a gentleman by the name of Joey Jenkins. Great guy, very energetic, lively guy, and he and his wife Denise were very nice people, African-American young man. And this idea of me not really having to worry about anything, not really having to be concerned with when I left the apartment, where I went, what I did, when I did it, because of, being a white male, and I'm probably just not going to get hassled all that much. I got a very eye-opening lesson in that. Joey invited us to his birthday party. His birthday party was going to be done in the south side of Chicago at, I think it was a pavilion somewhere, I forget where. And so my wife and I went. There were 300 people at this party, of which 4 were white. Myself, my wife, and another couple that I didn't know. And I got the full force of what it means to be a minority that night. We stayed there about 3 hours. I didn't get talked to very much. I was frankly pretty intimidated by it. I wasn't scared. I wasn't treated rudely or poorly, but I just kind of wasn't treated at all. I was just a skinny white guy, and nobody paid much attention to me. My wife, on the other hand, never left the dance floor. For the 3 hours we were there. Someone was up, and those of you know my wife, man, this is weird, I don't want to sound sexist or weird or boast or anything, but my wife's an attractive woman, and in her day, people paid attention. And every 5 minutes, may I dance with you? Yeah, sure. I'm sitting there, nursing a beer, and it was too loud, and I'm pretty good going to a room full of strangers and engaging somehow, but the music was very loud, and the atmosphere was such that I really didn't know how to engage at this moment. I had never had this experience. So it was really, it's like, wow, okay, I think I get it a little bit now. And she was, she's like, wow, this was so much fun, let's do it again. But you know, and there's, I'll confess, I'll confess, because this is, you know, Katie said this should be, you know, confessional and some things that you might not be willing to say or talk about. But I have to confess at times being relieved that I'm a white man. And I was talking to my wife last night about that party and everything like that, and she said, well, you have to remember something. You know, I had to go through all these permutations to get ready for this thing, to go out. And, you know, you have to prepare yourself, and you have to decide what's going to happen, is whether you get attention or whether you not get attention, because you're a woman. And I realized that I think it's very important, if we're going to be talking about race, I think it's very important that gender has to fit in there as well, because I think the experiences of black men and black women, white men and white women are extremely different, and how the world is perceived and how you go out into the world. Because what happened was, yeah, I had autonomy, I had carte blanche, I could go out anytime I wanted, but Faye did not have that. She would get hassled, and she would sometimes get hassled, sometimes it would be a racial thing. Sometimes she was a little too slow going through a revolving door at Macy's on State Street, got called a white-ass bitch. She had, because of, you know, certain groups paid inordinate attention to her, she was just like walking down the street, just going to the L. She began to feel very insular and began to feel very enclosed. And as some of you know, she suffers from chronic depression, and one of her first or second major depressive issues happened during our stay in Chicago. She just started feeling like, because she was a woman, and because of what women have to go through dealing with, what women have to go through dealing with, I don't think I have to explain it. I think probably everyone here, everyone probably understands that. She began to feel like she had less and less opportunity in such a big city such as that. So we had our first two kids there, Claire and Dylan, my daughter and my son, and we kind of decided we wanted a little change of pace. So we moved up here in 1992. Faye was going to try and do some work in her mother's business, and so we saw that as an opportunity to come up here. Again, trying to work in theater and trying to do that kind of work, I try to keep the jobs that have flexibility, so I ended up doing a restaurant job again. I worked for 12 years at the Chi-Chi's in Richfield, the big Chi-Chi's that is now Menards. And again, kind of same situation. Now I'll tell you a little story about it. Kind of same situation. You know, you stay late to close the place. Anyone who works in restaurants, you know, the money's to be made when you stay late to close the place. And I have a very small experience and empathy with profiling, with the police profiling. It is nothing like what I think some of you went through a post story about getting stopped and having to get out of the car and having another squad car come. Nothing like that, but as some of you remember, when I started here, I used to wear my hair very long, and, you know, back down my shoulder blades, I used to keep it in a ponytail, and I used to wear it like that back then. So Chi-Chi's was in Richfield, so I would find myself getting done with work at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I drove, when we first moved down here, I drove a Chevy Celebrity station wagon, which we switched for a Ford Aerostar minivan. I know, I always favored the sexy automobiles. So I'm in this Ford Aerostar minivan, and I'm driving around. What I usually like to do is when I get done work early, and I said, or get done work late, like, you know, late at night, early in the morning, I said, well, I'm still kind of got energy, because, you know, I'm not really tired because of all the, you know, closing the place up kind of fires you up a little bit. So this would be a really good time to grocery shop. You know, there's nothing going on. Back when we had rainbows, rainbows are 24 hours, the Cubs are 24 hours. Great time to shop for groceries, there's hardly anyone in the store. And up until that point, I had been occasionally pulled over, and but not, you know, not to the extent that other guys are talking about. And it took me a while to figure out, and it'd be for, like, you know, you have a broken headlight, or one time it was the light on your license plate is out. And I said, well, this all seems kind of lame. And then I realized, you know, it's 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's a long-haired guy running around Richfield in a minivan. So I was probably thinking, the police are probably thinking, you know, either drug dealer or pedophile. But there was one particular incident that really stuck with me, and that always stuck with me. And it kind of, illustrates the difference between a white man being pulled over and a black man being pulled over. I went to the Rainbow, that used to go around 66, and I was going to do some shopping. It's about 1:30 in the morning. And something fell. My keys, my wallet, I forget what. Something fell and did one of those little bounces that puts it like way under the seat where you can't quite get at it. So I get out of the van, and I have to like lay down so that half my body is like on the ground and half my body is in the car, like working under the seat. So I look for all the world like I'm probably trying to steal the car. But I'm working on it. Suddenly I see this light flash and I see this voice that say, "Just stand up please and get out of your car." I went, okay, my brain's going, okay, I can explain this, no big deal. I didn't have to, because the sum total of this conversation as I stood up was, "Oh, you're not black." And he walked away. He didn't talk to me. He didn't even say, "Sorry, excuse me." He just said, literally, "Oh, you're not black." Walked off. I wanted to yell after him, "Don't you want to know what I was doing with the car? Maybe I was stealing this car." So, and I think that helps to sort of identify the difference, and I don't want to get too terribly political. I want to try and keep it to my experiences, but all things like, for instance, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and some of the countering to that has been, well, shouldn't all lives matter? And of course it should. Of course all lives should matter. But there's a different window on the word matter between black and white when you're out on the street at noon, or out on the street at midnight, or 1 o'clock in the morning, or even 11 o'clock at night. There's a different window of how that's perceived. And that's, I think, just a truth we have to start dealing with. This has got me, preparing for this and wanting to do this, has gotten me thinking about identity. I was listening to something on NPR last night. We were talking about identity, talking about people, how you're perceived, and how initially you might be perceived, and the stereotypes that come with, well, everybody. Everybody has a stereotype. If you're white male, if you're black male, if you're white. They were talking about how people had voted, and talking about a military person who the expectation was he voted conservative and he voted liberal. The expectations of a woman that they talked to who was an educator, who was gay, who had voted conservative. So it's like no one is ever what they seem to be. All human beings are inevitably more complicated and more messy than that. And that kind of thinking that you have to have and you have to go through when you want to have a meaningful relationship one-on-one with anybody, of any race, of any gender. One other thing that makes me think about, the white privilege that I think I've enjoyed without even really realizing it. I'm 57. I started working in the workforce at 21. I have never been unintentionally unemployed longer than 2 weeks. By that I mean, looking for a job and can't get a job. I've always been able to get a job. I used to think it was just because of my winning personality. But you look back on it, I think a lot of it had to do with who I am, who I identify with, and what is identified on me. So I do have a lot of hope for the future, though, about what is happening racially in America and everything else. My daughter recently, who is struggling with this as well because of attitudes that her friends have, came up to me and thanked me that she went to South High School, which is considered, by many, it's considered an inner city school. There you go, thank you. But it was also a school that really stressed academics, really stressed the arts, and was as multicultural as the day is long. So my daughter was able to be friends with people of color, with people with different gender identification, and she's 26, and all this that we're struggling with and that we're talking about, she has no patience for it. She's like, this is all just stupid. You people are stupid. She doesn't say that about us, but it's just a stupid thing. And I'm hoping that generation and the younger generation, the millennials, that it's going to be, it's going to be a little less. It's going to be a little less, and it's going to be a little less as time goes on. I think it's going to take another several generations, actually. I mean, I was thinking about this. 60 years ago, which is in the span of a person's lifetime, which is close to the span of my lifetime. You know, I look at this room right now as a workplace. This room was unthinkable 60 years ago. You know, in a lot of parts of the country. This mix that we have, this generous mix of humanity and diversity would have been unthinkable that long ago. So, I will confess that I have at times, like I said before, been kind of relieved to be a white male in America. I think that guys like me, and particularly maybe guys my age too, have got to have that, what Dennis is not here today, but what Dennis likes to call a come to Jesus moment. And when enough guys like me start to realize this isn't reason for relief, but that this is real reason for concern moving forward, then I think things will get a lot better. Thanks a lot for listening to me. I appreciate it.